Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Heist Divided. We had a good weekend this weekend, not the craziest one, but still very good. We're going to start off with our best bets here today and our headlines and predictions and our fantasy explosion players. I went 1-1 this week with my best bets. Not great, but not as bad as the other side. Rods with the 1-4 record again this week.
Let's go Lions. Come on.
Yeah. I hit my headlines this week. Rods.
I went 1-1.
1-1. Fantasy explosion players. I went 2 for 3. So that's pretty good.
I went 2 for 3 as well.
Yeah, we're getting up. We're trying to catch up with our special guest. We're not at his level yet, but we're gonna get up there. And I want to just call attention to everybody to these win columns. As you can see, they're both at 14. But these loss columns, I don't know. It looks like one of us is wrong half the time the other is.
Hey, I'm just saying I take more risk out here. And, yeah, it'll get fixed. I've been going through a 2-week slump, and that's why the loss column's big. But I'll get there. I'll get there.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can't have the fans with these 22 losses, okay?
No more. This week, I guarantee a winning weekend on my side.
Guarantee a winning percentage from Roz. You heard it here.
Yep. Don't worry.
Let's get into our first subject of the day, though. It's a team I had very high on my radar, and they let me down after barely surviving the week before. BYU finally falls this weekend to Kansas. What do we think of that? What happened during the game, and what are the ramifications of their loss?
Yeah. First, I want to address the elephant in the room. I'm in a new office. Sorry about the background, but I'm kidding. But yeah, going into that game, obviously BYU struggled against Utah. I wasn't always very high on them, but I didn't expect them to lose to Kansas. But I always thought that 2.5-point line was fishy, especially BYU at home.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it doesn't have that much ramifications. If they win out, they should still make the conference championship. And if they take care of business, they'll be in the playoffs. But it was a concerning loss, especially. Obviously, Kansas is not a 3-6 team, but that's their record. But it was a win they should have won at home at night. Obviously, them being the way better team, rankings-wise, this season so far, they should have taken care of business, but they couldn't.
Yeah, I agree. It was a disappointing loss, but I'd say it was weeks coming. They'd struggled recently. They needed some help from some people that were black and white to beat Utah. And they struggled again this week. Like you said, they're winning out and they're in the championship game. What I will say, it does change for me who the favorite going into that game is and who the Big 12 championship favorite. For me, it's the Buffaloes. They look great. Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, I'm never going to count them out, but who do you think is the Big 12 favorite this year after this loss?
Yeah, I agree. Even after this week, I thought it was the Buffs. I said that would be the championship, and Colorado would take care of business. But they have a tough game against Kansas this weekend. We'll talk about that in the preview show, but I'm just saying Kansas apparently is crushing dreams out here. First Iowa State, now BYU, maybe Colorado, but we'll see.
Yeah, they're the meme, the Ripper meme when he's knocking on the door. That's Kansas right now.
Yeah, it's the most deceiving. I guess they're at 4 wins now. The most deceiving 4-win team.
Yeah, I mean, we had them as the consensus nationally was that they would be a Big 12 contender at the start of the year. They obviously fell short early, but they're getting that momentum going.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Travis Hunter got that crazy little handoff touchdown at the end of the game. You could say he was padding his stats, but that play was just impressive. He ran that in. Obviously had an interception that game. To me, he's the Heisman favorite right now. Obviously, things could change, but what he's doing on both ends is impressive. And I think Colorado is the favorite. They have a tough game against Kansas, like I said, but they should take care of business and win out and hopefully be in the playoffs because I want to see those two and even Shiloh be in the playoffs.
Even Shiloh.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of playoff implications, there was a very big game this weekend that had a lot of playoff implications. but the Dogs took care of business and really bounced back against the Vols. What do you think about their playoff chances going forward for each team?
I think for Tennessee, it hurts Tennessee more than it hurts Georgia, because Tennessee is obviously now below them, going to be below them in the CFP rankings when they come out Tuesday. And you no longer only have one marquee win instead of you could have had two. So this is tougher for Tennessee. They should still be in that bubble and hopefully be able to play themselves into the playoffs. But yeah, they're going to be fighting for their lives harder than Georgia is. And Georgia should now, in my opinion, be cemented into those into safely not in the bubble anymore playoff spots in the same Alabama Ole Miss tier. And for Georgia, 2-2 in those four marquee matchups is not what we expected them from early in this year, but honestly, it's a great result. And if we're talking about any other name on that schedule, we're seeing 2-2 is absolutely incredible. So
yeah, like I saw Georgia has the hardest strength of schedule, but also we didn't expect them to go 2-2 the way they did, but coming into the season, I expected them to lose at Texas and at Alabama. Obviously, if they won at Texas and lost at Ole Miss. So like you said, I think going 2-2 against those four top 10 teams in the country, three of them on the road, it's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So big showing from the Bulldogs, and in my opinion, they should they could win out. They should win out, and they're probably in a spot where they won't make the championship game, so they'll cement their spot.
Yeah, I don't know how all those tiebreakers in the SEC
will be,
but it'll be interesting, and whoever ends up there, probably I don't know if they're going to punish the SEC championship loser, but
they shouldn't. But we'll see what happens.
But there's going to be a lot of 2-loss teams left out, so I don't know how they're going to maneuver that. But whoever gets to that championship's got to take care of business if they want to push their ticket to the playoffs and not leave it into the committee's hands.
Yeah, I agree. But we were talking about the committee. Let's see the top SEC team and top Big Ten teams according to the committee. They both barely escaped with wins. Oregon barely escaped the Badgers, only a 3-point win. Late in the game, it was tied, and the Badgers were driving. Of course, we all know how that ended, but that's not a great look for Oregon. And then Texas in that renewed rivalry, they got going a little bit early, but then they struggled again for a while. What do we think of those games?
Yeah, I think Oregon was bound to have that tough game they barely slip out of, but I'm not very concerned. Wisconsin is a tough place to play sometimes, and I think they just struggled a little bit more than we've obviously seen them this season, which is expected. Glad it came against a weaker opponent rather than against Ohio State in the championship or like that. But with Texas, like you said, they started really good. It was like, oh, this is not even going to be a game. And then the second half came and Arkansas got a little momentum, and then they fumbled. Then they got that interception. They threw that interception, and the momentum was kind of killed. And Texas just kind of held on. Obviously, the Oregon game was a little more scary than the Texas game, but I feel like, especially how the game started, Texas was going to destroy Arkansas.
Yeah, I agree. Mostly, I'll just give it as a testament to it's a rivalry renewed, and I think Arkansas showed out. They were at home, and it really did give me a encouraging feeling for this realignment. And more excitingly, if this was how good a Arkansas-Texas match was, imagine Texas A&M Texas, how good that matchup's going to be. But yeah, not what you wanted to see from either team, but I think both teams will definitely correct it down the road.
Hey, at this point in conference play, a win's a win.
A win's a win.
Especially on the road, you try to come out with a win any way you can. So good for those two teams.
Good for both. Yeah.
Not slipping up and letting a loss affect really their playoff seeding and hopes.
Yeah, one loss, maybe not to Oregon because they're undefeated, but Texas could find themselves out of an SEC championship with the loss, and who knows what happens from there. So, great win from them. Oregon obviously had the safer ground, but good to see them come out with the win.
Yeah. Speaking of playoffs and teams slipping up and down, What are your top 10 rankings for this week?
All right, my top 10 rankings. Let's get this going. I'm gonna start us off with number 1 through 5. I had no changes through my top 5, even though Oregon had the close game. They still beat Ohio State, so I can't move them past Oregon. Ohio State, great showing again. They're gonna stay where they're at. Texas is gonna stay where they're at because Indiana had the bye, so that's why Indiana's going to stay where they're at, and Penn State's going to stay where they're at. So 6, I have Notre Dame. Just really only because they've been taking care of business recently, and they only rise because other people fell. Same goes for Alabama and Ole Miss again. They had their wins against Georgia earlier in the year, why they're ahead of Georgia, and recently they've just been taking care of business like you want to see. And then I have number 9, Georgia. Huge win against Tennessee this weekend, vaults them back into the playoffs like we said earlier. Obviously, I can't put them above Alabama, Ole Miss because they lost to both of them. And then number 10, the team spearheaded by my Heisman favorite, Ashton Jeanty. I got Boise State, which we'll talk about this later or sometime when we get closer to the playoffs and it comes closer to seeding. But I now have Boise State as the third highest conference champion.
The Big 12 got out? And I
got ACC and Big 12. I don't have any of them in my top 10.
Which one would not get a bye?
I would have Miami theoretically ahead of whoever wins BYU Colorado.
I agree with that. And especially but the tricky is if SMU or Miami slips up and gets in there, I think they won't get the bye. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
I agree. Yeah.
Let's get into my top 10. I had a lot of movement. I'm not gonna lie. I started in strength of schedule and just the eye test and teams that I think if they played each other right now in a neutral field, who I think would win. Obviously factored in with their record and their wins and their losses. My top 3 stayed the same, even though Oregon struggled, but obviously they're undefeated. Had that great win against Ohio State. Then I got Ohio State. Struggled a little bit against Northwestern. And then Northwestern had that awful punt, whatever, miss. And then they really rolled after that. And I got Texas. No movement there. Indiana moved up because I had Tennessee ahead of them. Tennessee lost, obviously. Obviously, Indiana doesn't have the most impressive schedule, most impressive wins, but they are undefeated and they are taking care of business. You can't fault them for not playing anyone. They're only playing who's on their schedule. Then I got Bama really moving up. Obviously, that big win against Georgia, that blowout win against LSU, and they've just looked really good these last couple of weeks. Then I got Ole Miss, really impressive against Georgia 2 weeks ago, dominating them on the line. And I just think, obviously, coming into the season, it was one of the most talented teams, and they're finally putting it together. I got Georgia coming into the top 10, beating Tennessee this past weekend, and obviously having that tough schedule they have, and really obviously behind Bama and Ole Miss because they lost to them, but they had a tough schedule. So 2 losses, going 2-2, like we talked about, was impressive for them. Then I got Tennessee. I mean, playing at Georgia is not an easy task, especially coming off a loss. So I don't think they're that bad. I think, obviously, it's hard to see those 4 teams because they've all kind of beat each other. Tennessee beat Bama earlier in the year, but I've liked that. When I've seen Bama clicking, they look like a better team than Tennessee. And if that game was played in a neutral site, I think Bama would win that game. Then I moved Notre Dame down. They've just been cruising, to be honest, since that A&M game. Obviously, they slipped up against NIU. I'm factoring that in a lot, but also they haven't really played anyone. Maybe Louisville, but that's about it. But that's why I have them ahead of Penn State, because they have better wins. Obviously, they have a way worse loss, but they just have better wins than Penn State. And I just think all these teams ahead of Penn State, maybe Notre Dame and Penn State would be a good game, but all these other teams ahead of Penn State, I think would beat Penn State, to be honest. But yeah, that's my top 10.
Good. A lot of movement.
Yeah.
Very interesting. A lot more interesting movement than in mine.
Yeah, I started factoring new criteria because I think I felt weird having Penn State that high when they don't have really a lot of wins. Same with Notre Dame, but
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Perfectly valid. That concludes our section of college football. Let's get into what was the much better weekend this weekend, we'll say. NFL had a great Sunday. Let's start with the big rivalry matchup this weekend. Steelers win in a classic Ravens-Steelers slugfest, making it 8 out of the last 9. What are our takeaways from this game?
the Steelers are for real. I think behind the Bills and the Chiefs, they are right there with them. We saw them kind of shut down Lamar's running ability, a lot of that offense. Derrick Henry had a little quiet night. He had a big run here and there, but he was mostly quiet for most of the game because you guys were playing with the lead and the Ravens were playing from behind. But that defense is for real. Russ had a questionable interception in the red zone in a big moment, but besides that, had a pretty good game. He found Darnell Washington a couple times down the field in big third downs. So I was really impressed watching that game. And yeah, I would say y'all are second or third in the AFC right now.
Yeah, I think between the Bills and the Steelers, I think those are the two teams challenging the Chiefs right now for that AFC representation in the Super Bowl. I'll say, I mean, it's just that defense again on point. When the offense laid another slugfest, the Steelers got 3 turnovers. Big one from Herbig on Henry. First one, 500 touches for him. We have the crazy interception from Peyton Wilson that gave the Pittsburgh momentum back after that end zone interception. And the Patrick Queen revenge fumble where he stripped it and recovered it himself. One man's trash is another man's treasure was the quote after that from Mike Tomlin. And then my biggest takeaway, Chris Boswell proved he is better than Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker, I mean, I went to the same high school as him. I go to the same university as him. So there's no bias here. Boswell's better, and Boswell should be the All-Pro this year, even over Aubrey.
No, this season, yeah, Boswell's better. Tucker's been struggling like we never seen before. I forgot who passed them as the most accurate kicker of all time because he's had so many misses this season.
I think Boswell might be number 2 on that list.
Yeah, it wasn't Boswell. I forgot who it was.
Yeah, he's been solid for 10 years now. He's been amazing.
I would say, yeah, this season, Boswell is better. A lot of kickers are better than Justin Tucker, but I don't know. All the time, I still got love for Tucker, and I think obviously he just got passed for the most accurate kicker of all time after having a season that is crazy.
Yeah, I saw that in his entire career against the Steelers, he'd missed 2 kicks. He missed 2 kicks yesterday and doubled it.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with him, but hopefully you can figure it out because I like that guy. Obviously, like you said, he went to our high school. I like supporting those guys. Speaking of the class of the AFC, are the Bills the top contenders in the AFC after beating the Chiefs this weekend?
You have to say yes, even though I don't like betting against Mahomes, and we'll talk more about that come playoffs. But right now, you have to say yes. Josh Allen looked better than Mahomes did yesterday, and the Bills looked better than the Chiefs did yesterday. They're looking like a way better coached team than they've looked in the years before, and just the Bills are really getting going. They're really clicking. And you can, even though Josh Allen has had some turnovers, he's still playing at a very high MVP level. And obviously, I think right now they're the team to beat.
Yeah, I was watching the CBS Today little thing before the morning games, and I saw all the commentators going through the tables and stuff, and it kind of gave me, obviously not to the scale, a college game day feel. That Bills Mafia, we all know it's crazy.
Yeah.
It had like the most college feel-like game in the NFL for a while, and I was impressed with Josh Allen. I don't know, at the end of the game, I thought maybe Mahomes can pull it out, but Josh Allen, every time the Chiefs try to get it close, he pulled it away. And yeah, like you said, there's them, the Steelers, Chiefs, Ravens. They're the top of the AFC. But right now, I would say Buffalo is top.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I mean, obviously they've beat the Kansas City in the regular season before, but I don't know. This year feels different. Kansas City, they've had their best record ever, but they haven't been playing at their best ever. So this year kind of does feel different. And I think we can right now we're talking about the Bills as the best challenge and team in the AFC right now.
Yeah, and that's always the case. It's been the last couple of years the Bills or the Ravens, but mostly the Bills. But once the playoff comes, Patrick Mahomes has had the Bills number. But we'll see if they match up again this year, and we'll talk about that in the future. But we're talking about contenders in the AFC. One that's kind of a little lower than these teams we've been talking about, but kind of making their way up. The Chargers. Do you think they're contenders this year?
Absolutely, I think they are. I mean, you've seen it the last couple of weeks now. They're winning games really well, and they're no longer doing. Harbaugh's changed the culture where they're no longer choking those games they used to choke. They're no longer playing Chargers football. They're playing a new style of really good football. They're very solid defensively with the same players they were bottom 5 in last year. They're top 5 in this year. That's a testament to the culture and coaching staff and what they've done. And you mentioned the Ravens amongst the tier with the Steelers and the Bills. I'd put the Ravens closer. I'd put the Chiefs, Bills, and Steelers right now atop, and then I'd put the Chargers and Ravens right below them. Like, it's not like a big drop off, but I think they're right there.
Yeah. You said they don't choke anymore. They almost did last night.
They almost did, but they didn't. That's the difference. They came back. They let it go, but then a beautiful drive. Justin Herbert played a magnificent game. Lad McConkey, one of our favorite players, established himself as a wide receiver 1. In the game where he was playing with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, Lad McConkey might have looked the best out of all of them. I mean, yeah. I'm not saying in the season, just in that game. We all know what Jamar's done this year, guys.
Yeah, but yeah, what I told you before, I think this will be the game Herbert reminds everyone that, hey, I'm still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Yep. I still throw it. I'm not just handing the ball off. And he did that, finding his other white boy, Lad McConkey, and they really connected, like you said.
Because they're sneaky athletic, first guy in, last guy out kind of guys.
Exactly. But I mean, they came back. He led that drive, but the defense almost choked it again. It hit T. Higgins in the hands in the end zone, and then
Pearson missing 2.
Yeah, Derwin James knocked that down, but it was so close for them to choke it again, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I think they are legit contenders. That defense, I was seeing, especially in the first half, like the Bengals driving down, but they just wouldn't break. And I heard they have only allowing like 13 points a game leading up to that game. So that defense is really good. They were missing Khalil Mack, but that pass rush is really good. Those rookie corners are really good. And I think they could pull off some upsets in the playoffs. And I think they play the Ravens this weekend. And I think that'll be a good game too.
That's going to be a great showdown, the Har Bowl. It's going to be –
yeah.
Well, we'll look more into it later, but it's going to be a great, great game.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, let's turn it over from the class of the AFC to the class of the NFC. The Eagles, great win over the Commanders, who we all had highly touted. Are they a threat to the Detroit Lions? Because we've all seen what they can do.
I don't think anyone's a threat to the Lions, I'll be honest. I think
that's weird to say.
Yeah, I think the Eagles are the second best team in the NFC, but I don't really see them as a threat. Like, yeah, obviously it's Jacksonville, but the 400 pass yards, 3 touchdowns from their running backs, that offense, when it's clicking, you can't stop it. And Sam Laporta was out too. They have great weapons out wide with speed with Jameson Williams and great route running from Amon-Ra. And then they have that security blanket when Laporta's healthy. And then they got 2 speedsters that can catch the ball. And it's just, I don't know how. Yeah, I think if they matched up, I don't know if it will be a blowout, but I think the Lions will confidently handle the Eagles. But the Eagles have been rolling. I will say that they're playing way better. They're leaning on Saquon more, especially in the second half when the defense is getting tired. But yeah, I think the Lions are just that much ahead of everyone in the NFC, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with everything. Most of probably everything you've said. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFL for me right now. I mean, that's 52 points, and is it two of the last 4 or 3? But I don't know. But that's
4 out of the last 6 or something like that.
yeah. They showed what they can do playing from behind, even in a game where their quarterback turns the ball over 5 times. And now you can see when they don't turn the ball over 5 times, they can drop 50 on you. They're the best team right now. And Eagles are the second team in the NFC, but they're not close to Detroit right now.
Yeah. Speaking of the NFC, a team that's been in the downward trajectory instead of the Lions upward, the Bears, the Pack blocked the Bears' playoff hopes with that field goal block at the end of the game. Are the Bears out of playoff contention with that loss?
Yes. Yes. There was the moment early October where they gave us hope, but Caleb Williams has not scored in about a month. Yeah, the kick obviously was a horrible experience, but I think these are problems they've been having for a while. They'll continue to have them throughout the year. I think they're closer to a top 10 pick than the playoffs. The Packers, my bigger concern is you keep turning the ball over. I mean, Jordan Love's really turning into Brett Favre, so he plays as good and as bad as Favre. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how they're. I still really like the Pack to be a wild card team. So, but not the Bears.
Yeah, I also think something that unfortunately the Bears I saw have the toughest remaining schedule left in the league.
Yeah, them and the Steelers both played their first divisional game. Thing is, the Steelers get to play the Browns twice. The poor Bears have to play the Vikings, Lions twice, and then the Packers another time.
Yeah, so that's not pretty, obviously. I think they'll get 1 or 2 wins maybe, but yeah, I think they'll end up with 6 to 7 wins, and that will get them out of playoff contention. I will say their offense did look better since finding their.
Oh yeah, since they filed Waldron, he is a Matt Canada level coach right there.
Yeah, they
Chicago celebrated as much as Pittsburgh did when they fired him.
Yeah,
and they did look better. Caleb looked better. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a game that you're kind of back and forth the whole game, but it looks like you always have kind of control of it, and then boom, hopes get shot with that.
Yeah.
Block. And
would have seen that. So that's such a voodoo play, and now we've seen it twice recently.
Yeah, and like you said, like the Packers, Jordan Love's turnovers do concern me, but something I have liked is they're feeding Josh Jacobs, man, and that guy is proving he's one of the top running backs in the league. But he's catching it off passes way more than he did back in the Raiders, and it just shows like how diverse he is and how he can do it in the passing game and the running game. And obviously I love that as a fantasy owner of Josh Jacobs, but it was good to see because he makes the offense way better with his running ability and catching ability.
A catching ability with Vegas, he never scored a receiving touchdown in Vegas. And I remember how hype and exciting it was when he finally caught one in Green Bay.
Yeah, Jordan Love was looking for him.
Yeah, so they've gotten that going. He's gotten better on the air and in the ground. And
he had 5 receptions for like 60 yards last game against the Bears. So
yeah, I like the Pack, and I like Jacobs and Love. So
yeah, good. Speaking of let's just move on to our Thursday night preview. It's Steelers versus Browns in Cleveland. What you got? What you like?
Yeah, I liked this game earlier in the year when we thought the Browns would be very good and that maybe possibly all of the AFC North was competing for the playoffs. We know that's not the truth anymore. And the Browns are competing for the number 1 pick again, back to true form. The Steelers opened as 4-point favorites. I like that line a lot. It's very solid because the Steelers do play divisional games. In fact, all AFC North games are always pretty close. Like as we saw with Cleveland, Baltimore, we saw it with the Cincinnati-Baltimore games, and we obviously saw it again Sunday, Steelers-Baltimore. This is going to be another close game. Cleveland does look very bad, and they keep finding ways to lose, as we just saw 35-14 loss to New Orleans. I don't think they'll lose to 21 against Pittsburgh. One, I don't think Pittsburgh has that explosive of an offense sometimes. So, but I do see them very much being able to shut out Cleveland, who scores the least amount of points in the first half, and then Pittsburgh, who lets up the least amount of points in the second half. That'll be very interesting to see how Cleveland does scoring-wise. I think the Steelers do have a handy win. I think it's a 10-plus win, unfortunately for Cleveland, fortunately for me. But I don't think we're seeing another 21-point blowout like we did last week.
Mm-hmm. I think it'll be an ugly, ugly game. Low scoring, very bad football being played at times, but just scrappy. A lot of pushing, shoving.
Obviously, it'd be like a 20-9 game.
Yeah, something like
reality
that.
We're looking
a lot
at.
of field goals, a lot of.
Mm-hmm. Boswell cementing his MVP campaign.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. If I had to risk my life on it, I would say the Steelers win. But I don't know. I could see the Browns winning this game.
It's a definite trap game. It's a game the Steelers historically have fallen for. Cleveland somehow has had recently in recent years their number more than Baltimore has. So yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, Mike Tomlin has this team going though. So we'll see.
I think, like you said, it's a trap game, short week, going on the road to Cleveland after a big win. It's a typical trap game, but obviously,
couple of injuries along the D line for Pittsburgh. So
if I had to bet for my life, I would pick the Steelers, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns pull out this win in an ugly game, because that's the only way they're gonna win. They're not gonna win.
I'd say I'd be shocked if they win. Not like shock. It would be a surprise, but I would not be shocked, that surprised at all if they do cover. If we're looking at that,
that's fair. But I don't know. I could see the Browns winning this game. That's just me personally. But like I said, like I would pick Pittsburgh if my life depended on it. But for me personally, I would not be. It's just a trap game. I
did see Cleveland's left tackle is out for the year, and I think that's multiple left tackles now. So it's
okay.
No.
Jameis Winston.
He eats what? Jameis Winston is one of the most likable people alive. So we're always rooting for him.
Love that guy. But anyway, that concludes our episode of reactions to this weekend. Tune in for Friday, where we're going to preview this weekend's games. A lot better games, in my opinion, than this weekend. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.